Dear friends, welcome back to my channel. Let's read. From the timeless collection of Ismat Chughtai, we were reading The Rock. Let's begin with part 2. There was a time when her Pathan blood boiled easily and she would come to blows at the slightest provocation. Instead of sulking often, she would attack Bhaiya like a ferocious cat when she was angry with him and scratch his face and rip his shirt from the front of her teeth. Bhaiya would crush her in his arms. Reduced to helplessness, she placed her head on his chest and sobbed like a frightened, thirsty little bird. Then they would make up. Feeling sheepish, she'd lovingly apply tincture to the scratch marks on his face, mend the rips in his shirt, and continue looking at him with gratitude. This was when Bhabhi was as delicate as a butterfly. But when she quarreled with Bhaiya, she reminded one of the little Persian cat. Now she rarely loses her temper, and if she did, she'd quickly occupy herself with something or the other and soon forget all about it. That day, ignoring her heavy, thick set body, she attacked Bhaiya with full force. Her weight was enough to crush him against the wall. He was repelled by the young and the bouncing heap of flab. He didn't get angry nor did he raise a clamor. Embarrassed and sad, he lowered his head and bolted from the room. Bhabhi collapsed right there and started weeping. Matters deteriorated further, and one day Bhaiya's brother-in-law came to fetch Bhabhi. Tufail Bhai was Bhabhi's cousin. No sooner did she set eyes on him, put her arms around him and began crying. He had seen Bhabhi after 5 years. The sight of the domed figure startled him momentarily, but then he clasped Bhabhi to his chest as if she were a little girl. Bhaiya was at cricket match with Shabnam that day. Tufail Bhai waited until it was dark. When Bhaiya didn't show up, he instructed Bhabhi to pack her things and get the children ready. Bhaiya made an appearance for a few moments just as they were leaving. I am handing over the houses in Delhi to her as Meher, he addressed Tufail Bhai gruffly. Meher? Bhabhi trembled. Yes, and the divorce papers will be forwarded through the lawyer. Divorce? Meher? Who said anything about divorce? That's the best for all concerned. But the children? If she wants, she can have them. Otherwise, I'll send them to boarding school. I have made arrangements for them also. With a loud scream, Bhabhi lunged toward Bhaiya, but she didn't have the courage to scratch him. Terrified, she stood transfixed. Then she relinquished the last shred of her womanly dignity. She fell at his feet. She begged, You can marry her. I won't say a word. But for God's sake, don't give me a divorce. I'll spend the rest of my life like this. I'll never complain. But Bhaiya glanced hatefully at Bhabhi's quivering obesity and turned away. I have already given the divorce. Nothing can be done now. But who could mollify Bhabhi? She continued to lament. You fool! Tufail Bhai pulled her up in one jerk. You idiot! You fool! Get up! Dragging her, he took her away. What a tragic scene it was. The children howled along with Bhabhi. Amma stared vacantly at everyone. After Abba's death, she had no authority in the house anymore. Bhaiya was his own master and our guardian too, as a matter of fact. Amma had tried everything in her power to make him reconsider. She had been expecting something like this to happen. But what could she do? Bhabhi left. The atmosphere in the house was so depressing that Bhaiya and Shabnam also left for the hill station after their wedding. 7 or 8 years went by, but now we had all set up housekeeping. Amma passed away. Abba's death had left her in a state of torpor. She had wept and wailed at the time of Bhabhi's divorce, but she knew Bhaiya well. He had never paid attention to anything Abba had said either. A son who starts earning his living becomes his own master. The nest was destroyed. The house that lived and breathed once was now desolate. Everyone was scattered. The years seemed to slip away in the twinkling of an eye. Every 2 years or so, we'd get some news of Bhaiya. He traveled a lot, usually outside India. But when a letter arrived from him saying he was coming to Bombay, childhood's forgotten memories were revived. As soon as Bhaiya got off the train, I ran to him and we clung to each other like children. I couldn't see Shabnam anywhere. No sooner had I finished asking Bhaiya about her Then a heavy hand fell upon my shoulders with a thud, and a mountain of warm flesh engulfed me. Bhabhi? I said, holding onto the train window in order to prevent myself from falling over. I had never called Shabnam Bhabhi. She always looked like Shabnam. But today, the word Bhabhi suddenly escaped from my lips. How could a sprinkle of dewdrop become a dome of flesh? I looked at Bhaiya. He was the same, lean and slim, not an ounce out of here or there. Hair still thick like a boy's, just two or three shiny strands peeped out from his temples, giving him a rather distinguished look. He was as solid as a rock. Sometimes some die at the feet of the rock, while new waves nourishing a desire for self sacrifice find themselves irresistibly drawn to it. When Bhaiya married Shabnam, we all said that because Bhabhi, Shehnaz Bhabhi, she was too young and naive at the time of her marriage, she was easily suppressed by Bhaiya. But Shabnam, who was mature and worldly wise, would poison Bhaiya with her bite like female serpent and leave him flagging. She would definitely make him suffer, but only the rock can make the waves suffer. The kids are in boarding school. They didn't have any holidays. Shabnam blew her smelly, hyper-acidic breath in my face. And I was searching in this heap of flesh for the sprinkle of dew, for the Shabnam who had doused the fire of Shehnaz's love and ignited a new flame in Bhaiya's heart. But what was this? Instead of burning to a cinder in the fire of her love, Bhaiya had come out more burnished than ever, like a gold. The fire had consumed itself and turned to ashes. Bhabhi was like a mound of butter, but Shabnam was singed, muddy-looking ash. Shabnam looked permanently pregnant. The well-rounded arms that glowed like the delicate shiny limbs of a tree were now thick and ungraceful and looked like a pair of dumbbells. Her face was plastered with makeup, her eyes smeared with mascara, and she had probably plucked her eyebrows too much so that she had to use a darker pencil on them. Bhaiya was staying at the Ritz. We arrived there for dinner. The cabaret was at its climax. The Egyptian beauty was contorting her flat stomach, her hips gyrated in her circles, her voluptuous arms fluttered in the air. Her golden legs could be seen quivering like pillars of ivory behind a thin veil of chiffon. Bhaiya's hungry eye crawled over her body like scorpions. Again and again, he rubbed a secret wound at the back of his neck. Bhabhi, who used to be Shabnam, who, like the Egyptian dancer, was once an electric current that burned Bhaiya, sat immobilized like a hill of sand. Bad diet and anemia had given her plump cheeks the yellowed green look of a mummy. Viewed under the neon lights, her complexion made one think of someone bitten by a cobra. The Egyptian dancer's hips were creating a storm, and Bhaiya's heart bobbed up. Shabnam Bhabhi, now and the mother of 5 children, fearfully watched them both. She rapidly downed large morsels of roasted chicken in her order to distract herself. The orchestra took a deep breath. The instruments groaned. The drum's heartbeat vibrated. The Egyptian dancer's waist spun for the last time, and she slid to the marble floor in exhaustion. The entire hall echoed with the sound of applause. Shabnam's eyes sought Bhaiya. The bearer arrived with the fresh raspberries and a jug of cream. Without thinking, Shabnam filled her plate with raspberries. Her hands were trembling, restless like a pair of wounded deer. Her eyes darted in all directions. Away from the crowds, on a darkened balcony, Bhaiya was lighting the Egyptian dancer's cigarette, his impassioned gaze tangled with the dancer's rapture-filled eyes. Shabnam's face was colorless and she sat listlessly like a ponderous mass. Finding her glance directed toward them, Bhaiya led the dancer by the elbow to where we were sitting and introduced us. "This is my sister," he said, pointing to me. The dancer swayed in acknowledgement of my presence. "My wife," he said in a dramatic tone, as if he were showing the dancer an injury received on the battlefield. The dancer was stunned. It seemed that it wasn't Bhaiya's wife she was looking at, but his own body drenched in blood. She stared at Shabnam with horror. Then she filled her eyes with every ounce of maternal affection she could muster and gave Bhaiya a special look in which 1,000 stories were concealed. "Oh, this Hindustan?" where such beautiful people are sacrificed on the altar of custom and practice. These people who submit to such punishment are to be pitied and are worthy of worship. Shabnam, my bhabhi, read all this in the dancer's eyes. Her hands shook. To hide her anguish, she quickly picked up the jug of cream and emptying it over the raspberries in her plate, she began eating with great fervor. Poor Bhaiya, handsome and pitiable, beautiful like the sun god, romantic, honey eyed Bhaiya, unmoving like a rock, he sat smiling in the role of an immortalized martyr. An old wave, tired and broken, lay dying at his feet. A new wave, bright and undulating, was waiting breathlessly to be clasped in his arms. Dear friends, this was the end of this story. I hope you all enjoyed listening to this story. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe the channel. Please drop in your comments as how you like the story.